The most common treatment for hydrocephalus is a medical device called a shunt that drains the excess fluid from the brain to another part of the body. A small hole is made in the skull and a flexible tube is placed in the ventricle of the brain. This tube is connected to a valve that helps to regulate how much fluid leaves the brain. Tubing from the valve is most commonly placed in one of three areas in the body. The first is set into the abdominal cavity, also known as the peritoneal space. This is called a ventriculoperitoneal or VP shunt. The second is by way of a vein, with the catheter advanced into the vein into the right atrium of the heart. The vein can be accessed either in the neck or under the clavicle or collarbone. This is called a ventriculoatrial or VA shunt. The third is in a space between the chest wall and the lungs called the pleural cavity. This is called a ventriculopleural or VPL shunt. Some patients receive a unique type of shunt called a lumboperitoneal or LP shunt, which goes from the intrathecal space of the spinal column to the abdominal cavity. An endoscopic third ventriculostomy, or ETV, is an internal shunt that allows the CSF that is building up to bypass a blockage and be absorbed by natural ways. A small hole is made in the skull and a surgical tool called an endoscope is gently guided through the brain into one of the lateral ventricles and then passes down into the third ventricle. A hole is punctured in the membrane on the floor of the third ventricle, creating a pathway for fluid to flow out of the ventricles and around the brain. Some ETVs include a procedure called choroid plexus cauterization, or CPC. Once inside the brain, the neurosurgeon uses a device to burn or cauterize choroid plexus tissue in the ventricles to reduce the amount of fluid being introduced into the lateral ventricles. Not everyone is a candidate for ETV or ETV CPC treatment. To learn more about